On this edition of the program, did the Republicans gaslight Jasmine Crockett into getting into the Senate race? We talk with a man who says, yes, indeed, that happened. We also have a lovely woman on the program to talk about media and why liberals cannot leave X to the conservatives. Plus, all of the latest that is happening on Iran, the housing market, and Donald Trump doing a 2-hour interview with the New York Times. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for January 9th, 2026. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you from Austin, Texas. Unseasonably warm in January, but if it's unseasonably warm, it means it's actually beautiful outside. That is until tomorrow. Tomorrow it's going to rain and then everything's going to get cold again, but we will enjoy it for the moments that we have it. As indeed we enjoy the moments that we have together. Thank you for allowing me into your home. We have a lot to get to. 2 phenomenal interviews that will keep you warm into the weekend. Let's begin, though, with what is happening in Tehran, and indeed all throughout Iran. It is the biggest story on the global stage, and that is an uprising that seems to be large and only getting larger. People out in the streets revolting against the mullahs and the supreme leader, Khomeini. Is this the big one? We do not know. We do know that the regime is taking it very seriously. They shut off the internet as I am recording on Thursday, which usually means that lethal force is coming. But the numbers that you see in these videos are hard to deny. That being said, the internet is a very, very dicey place to get information. You got to be really careful about it. And so we will keep an eye on it. But boy, what a shocking turn of events. And you know, you would be hard pressed to say that what is happening right now is not almost directly connected to October 7th. You know, you have the attack of Hamas on Israel. Obviously, that leads to a horrifyingly bloody conflict and deadly conflict in Gaza that has driven the standing of Israel down throughout the world. And yet, they essentially dismantle Hezbollah. They certainly dismantle Hamas. Syria falls. The Americans take out the nuclear program for Iran. Iran fires off, a large portion of their missiles that have been stockpiled. And now it looks as if there is a popular uprising. Something to keep an eye on. Again, what I view to be the biggest story in the world. Domestically, there is what is happening in Minnesota, and that is the very unfortunate loss of life of what, by all available reporting that I've been able to follow, was a 37-year-old mother who was protesting the ICE deployment into Minnesota. There was a dispute between her and an ICE law enforcement officer. She was asked to leave a car. She did not leave the car. She put the car in drive, and she was shot dead by the ICE officer. J.D. Vance getting in front of the assembled press today saying that the officer has absolute immunity and it does not matter what the state does because the federal law enforcement, the Department of Justice, is shutting down any investigation into it as unlawful force. Now, what has shocked me about this, and we talked about it a lot on the extra yesterday, if you want this kind of commentary immediately, you know, we do have it for you if you are a subscriber on Substack. But what shocked me and continues to shock me is how much everybody can watch the exact same video and have diametrically opposite opinions on it. There are more details that have come out about the ICE officer. He apparently was the same ICE officer who was dragged 100 yards when trying to apprehend a immigrant who also had a record for sex offense. Did that factor in to him pulling his weapon? You can't imagine that it was separate. He was a 10-year veteran, however, not new to the force. My opinion a day later remains what it was immediately, which is, and I will say this to anybody who is listening, because I believe that this woman's loss of life is heartbreaking. She leaves behind multiple children. If you are approached by law enforcement, I would greatly encourage you to not A, disobey the orders to leave the car, B, put the car in reverse and then drive and then hit the gas. That is at the very minimum, she was fleeing law enforcement, which is not something that is safe. You should not flee law enforcement. And that's at the minimum. You were putting yourself in a tremendous situation of danger. Politically, and again, we're going to kind of put on our lizard our lizard hats here and look at this beyond the tragedy and the nuance of the situation itself and look only at the crass political calculus of it. It is a winning position for really both sides. On the J.D. Vance Republican side, this is the bookend for the George Floyd riots getting out of control. They are not going to waver in law enforcement's ability to do their job, even when it goes wrong or it goes deadly. They are going to keep it marching, and if there are riots because of it, then they will have the National Guard put it down. That is what their position is. They are a law and order administration. They are backing the blue. They believe that is a winning issue, and I think for the people that are in favor of stuff like that, which I do think is, moves into independent territory, is popular with independents, they will be rewarded for that. Now, on the other side, if you want to paint a picture of an authoritarian regime that has gone too far, then a dead mother of three is certainly in that vein. The New York Times, who we're going to talk about in the update because they got a 2-hour interview with President Donald Trump, did a video analysis that I thought was a joke, just an absolute joke. There are multiple clips of that incident. To focus on a slowed down version of things is just, it is beneath them editorially, in my opinion. And I have a high standard of any organization that journalistically has the budget that they have and I thought it was beneath their editorial standard. That's what I would say about that. I think that there is plenty of evidence to demonstrate that, again, you cannot flee law enforcement when a law enforcement officer is in front of your hood. It is just, now, does it rise to the level of deadly force? That is another conversation. But to say that this was just like a malicious murder, I think is a bridge too far. Still, politically, you are only going to further solidify and entrench those that already believe that this is a murderous authoritarian regime. I don't know how many new converts that you get, but you are certainly entrenching those who already believe. One final note before we get into our first interview, and this is more of a thing about journalism, and it affects me because of my sports allegiances. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the newspaper of record for that town, and certainly one of the strongest sports sections in the country, said that it will cease publication. This comes after a labor dispute that it had with its Reporters Guild. I don't know whether or not this is final, but a dark day in a world that I once committed my life to. Newspaper journalism. I would hope desperately that there is somebody that would like to continue that brand going. It is a very strong one. And again, I do believe that these brands matter. I do believe that these newsrooms matter. I do believe that these names matter. So we'll see what happens going forward. Our first interview is with a man named Reese Gorman. He writes for Notice, and it's a phenomenal story about how Jasmine Crockett got into the Senate race. We talk a lot about the Republican side of the Senate, a lot about Ken Paxton, John Cornyn, Wesley Hunt, and of course, Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico. Before we do, though, I want to play James Talarico's first television ad.
Before I was a legislator, I was a middle school teacher. I don't scare easily. I stood up to the billionaire mega donors defunding our public schools. I led the fight against politicians redrawing our districts to rig elections. And I fought the most extreme abortion ban in the country. Now I want to take that fight to the U.S. Senate to take on corruption and make life more affordable. My name is James Talarico, and I approve this message.
I hate this ad. I think this ad is terrible. I don't know why. I don't know who pitched it to him, but this is a bad ad. And it's a bad ad for two reasons. Number one, it's fake. It's cinematically shot. If you are only listening to this on audio, let me describe it for you. You are following a woman in from outside into a bar, what looks like, a Texas bar you'd see somewhere in a small town, right? And there, gathered around James Talarico specifically, is James Talarico. The people that are gathered around are an assembled mixture of various different ethnicities. And they are listening to him speak, and then they applaud. I hate it for two reasons. Number one, you don't need to fake that. James Talarico is a charismatic person. You can put him in an actual bar that is actually in Texas, and you can actually have him talk and get an actual reaction to it. I don't know why you needed to have a level of artifice here, especially when you don't do anything that demonstrates the need for it. If you fake a real moment, then it takes away, it makes it seem like he can't really do it. Don't like it. Number two, the talking points are just kind of like, I get he's going for common sense. Look, man, I'm just a regular guy that has regular ideas. That's fine. That's how they want to contrast to Jasmine Crockett. I think it's a terrible idea. This is a bad matchup. Styles make fights, especially when it comes to a primary. Jasmine Crockett is a blowtorch taped to a buzzsaw. She does not take any prisoners, and I don't think being rational is the way that you beat her. I think you have to draw a line in the sand. I support this. You support that. I want you to say something crazy so people think that I am more reasonable. Maybe you can make the argument that this is a cornerstone of reasonability. I just think if you're going to win as a Democrat, we'll talk about this with Reese, but if you're going to win as a Democrat in Texas, that means that you got to be a rock star, dude. You got to draw an inside straight. I know it's not fair, but you can't be a B+ and win as a Democrat in Texas. You got to be an A+++ once in a generation. If you miss this moment, you'll never see it again. Shooting star. You got to be that. You have to be that dude, have that message, and execute. Not just to your faithful, but also to independents. And you also have to just worm your way into the minds of some of these Republicans to say, if I just stay home, it wouldn't be the worst if he won. Yeah, don't like it. Anyway, here's Reese. The primary for the Senate race here in Texas is already ongoing. We went over James Talarico's ad a little bit earlier in the show, but the existence of Jasmine Crockett in this race is something that has been vexing for many Democrats, and there apparently is a story behind it. Reese Gorman is from Notice. He wrote a fantastic story about how we got from there to here. Reese, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Tell us about what you uncovered.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I had been seeing a lot of a lot of Republicans online and on Twitter prior to Jasmine Crockett getting in had been really just kind of amplifying this Crockett for Senate message and in a kind of ironic fashion. It was more of as what I thought was a joke, because they were like,
yes,
oh, like she should totally do it. I think everyone kind of saw that online if you're on deep in ex-political Twitter. And so I would see that, and they were all just kind of jokingly, I mean, you saw it kind of in every election, right? I mean, people are like, oh, in Pennsylvania, they're like, oh, Doug Mastriano, please get in the race. Or Carrie Lake, please run for Senate in Iowa. Like, it just always kind of happens.
Stacey Abrams in Georgia. There are a few people that the other side feels very confident not only can they beat, but is probably a turnout mechanism for their own base, because the other side is either incompetent or famous or both.
Exactly. And it's easy and like these people also like are pretty much shoo-ins to win a primary in most cases.
Yes.
Because it's like they're, especially like Stacey Abrams, to your point, Carrie Lake, like they're just such big names. So I was seeing that and I was like, oh, okay, like didn't think much of it. And so then there was a poll that was released that I believe was in Daily Wire, and that showed Jasmine Crockett winning the Senate race in Texas and winning the primary, when Allred was still in, and when Talarico was, I think he was considered a run. He had not officially got in yet. And so I saw that and I was like, okay, like this is funny. Somebody put Crockett's name in. Clearly, I mean, if you leak it to the Daily Wire, it's definitely more of a Republican trying to get something going. But I thought that was kind of just the it of it. And I started talking to sources, and behind the scenes, they're like, oh no, like we want her to run. Like we're trying to get her to run. And so I'd been hearing that for a while. And probably since like June or July, I'd been hearing that like national Republicans were trying to find ways to kind of coax Crockett. So this
was the national apparatus, not the Texas GOP or anything like that. This is the DC Republicans.
Yeah. So this was like the NRSC, which is the Senate campaign arm for Republicans, and I'd been hearing this, so I'd been talking to them. But she hadn't officially got her. So I was like, okay, I really don't think this is it's a story one way or the other. If they failed to get her in, it'd be like, okay, like here are some of their efforts to try to get her in and kind of failed. I mean, it's not really a good story. So I was like, let's just see if she gets in. If she gets in, then that's a great story.
Yeah.
And sure enough, she got in. And so I just started calling sources, and I was like, can you just give me the full rundown of like, obviously there's a public mechanism, which is some of this polling, some of the text. The trolling online of like, oh, please get in. But there's a much deeper effort as well, as far as they were sending push text alert to to Democrats in the state with Jasmine Crockett's office number, which is already public online, basically saying, "Oh, now is Jasmine Crockett's time. Call Crockett, tell her you support her,
tell her
to
run.
run."
Yeah,
and really emphasizing and trying to push these Democrats, these high propensity Democratic voters who would probably support Crockett in a primary, to call her and get her to run. And their mind was clearly, I mean, they did not admit this to me just because they are all in on Cornyn, but from just people I've talked to and just from my own, I mean, just looking at it, obviously there is an electability problem with Ken Paxton. If someone like Allred were to have won the primary and Ken Paxton would run the primary, or if Talarico, Ken Paxton is, I mean, he just has his flaws. And
he is very vulnerable. I mean, and so Paxton is kind of the Crockett version on the other side, where he is catnip to primary voters and yet has massive problems when you get to the general because he's scandal plagued. He's not exactly the most charismatic man on the planet. He's, got a lot of colorful stories in his past, and he just got rung up for corruption charges. So there's a lot to run against when you are on the other side of the aisle, but it is still a Republican-leaning state, Texas. And so if you have two flawed candidates running against each other, the Republican's probably going to win.
Exactly. So that was kind of, now, again, like they didn't admit this to me, but just looking at it and just talking to other folks who weren't necessarily involved in this effort, but are clearly like, if Jasmine Crockett were to get in, that this kind of helps them, regardless of who wins their primary, whether it's Hunt, whether it's Paxton, whether it's Cornyn, it kind of saves them millions of dollars. Because if it's Paxton versus Allred or Paxton versus Talarico, you're looking at,
you got to go all in. Yeah, you got to really start, you got to really spend. Yeah,
which is like, that's millions they aren't spending in Michigan or New Hampshire or wherever, Georgia, North Carolina. With like, that's just money taken away from these states that are usually not safe Republican seats that they need to win.
Yeah,
and so that was their belief. And so Crockett did get in, and after she got in, I started doing more reporting, and it wasn't just like the push text. It was they were push texting these voters. They were doing push polls, just being like, Crockett here. They were like sending polls to donors, to like high perceived voters, be like, oh, look at Crockett's winning. They were having these influencers online, Republican influencers, basically amp up Jasmine Crockett. Like, oh, Jasmine Crockett's winning this, and she was, and then they also got a hold of her own cell phone number. It got some of her receiving some of these push texts as well. Be like, oh, it's Crockett's time. Tell her to run. So she's seeing all this. And again, not saying that this is like she definitely ran because of these push texts. Well, she definitely did
not run because of it. Because one of the reasons why she said that she was running was because she kept seeing all these polls that showed her up. And I on one hand, I don't think the polls are manufactured. No. I think that the polls are methodologically rigorous. So I do think she has a good shot to win this primary. And she already chased out one of the candidates that the NRSC was kind of worried about, which was Colin Allred. That was supposed to be a three-way race or a two-way race between Talarico and Allred. Now Crockett's in. Allred got the hell out. He's running for a House seat now in the new map. And so it's Talarico versus Crockett. And, I talked about Talarico's first ad, but I don't think it's particularly inspiring. And also it exposes Talarico to something that I don't think he wanted to do. He wants to be a very bridge buildy, middle center way kind of candidate. And he's going to have to kind of get in the mud a little bit with Crockett because Crockett's a buzzsaw. She does not have any other setting but Crockett, and you're going to have to on some level be louder. And so the attitude that Talarico's come in with, this very live and let live, I have a good message to spread, I don't think it's going to stand up next to the kind of white hot, bare knuckled version of the Democratic message that Crockett's going to have.
100%. And also, I mean, to your point, people who vote in primaries, especially in places like, and just in every state, but Texas is no different, is the hardcore of that party. Like, you're not going to get the people who don't know who's on the ballot. Like half the time, people don't even know primary elections are going on. And very small percentage of actual voters vote in the primary elections. So you're going to get the hardcore party, the grassroots voting, which the grassroots and these progressive voters are the ones who are mostly going to come out. And that's going to lean more towards Crockett. Yeah. Because Talarico, I mean, he's very progressive in his own right. Like he does have his own progressive vein, but he also is like, I think he's like more, I think he described himself as like a pragmatic progressive. Where he's like,
he doesn't want to run like that. The whole point of him getting in the race is because he doesn't want to run like that.
He wants to be a little,
and this is something I'm sure you having been involved in Texas politics for longer than I have, but when you talk to Democrats in Texas, they're like, when you ask them, because nationally, you look at like, all right, hey, why can't you get like an Ann Richards type? Why can't you get somebody who's a pro-choice but knows how to use a gun, is authentically Texas kind of center way candidate? And the Democrats in the state will tell you, look, we try every time. The problem is that the people that come out to vote for Democratic primaries, and this is something that the rest of the country and the world might not be aware of, but like Austin, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, very blue. Like the progressives that are in Texas are very, very liberal, and they're the ones that come out and vote. And so you, especially over the last 20 years, the candidates that have come out have been pushed pretty far left. And the few times that you've gotten somebody that kind of you can squint and look centrist, like a Beto who remains the high watermark in that race against Ted Cruz, even he eventually kind of wanders off the map as he has been wont to do and did throughout his career after he made it to the main stage. And I don't think that they're going to beat the allegations this time, Reese, because Crockett's in, and there's no version of middle road Crockett. Like she is going to be who she is, and her theory of the case, as she said in her entrance speech, was, this isn't actually a red state. This is a blue state, which is, I think, factually challenged, but we'll see her theory of the case play out.
Yeah. And also, it's just like, she does rub just people the wrong way. Her colleagues, and she's not extremely well liked on the Hill. Like when I wrote the story, I got text from a number of Democrats in the House, her colleagues, being like, oh, I really like this story. And like, it's not, and she lost a race for the House Oversight Chair or ranking member pretty substantially. And she does have this huge following. She does have this persona and brand that is very liked outside of Washington. That is progressives love her. She does have this brand. But as we've seen, we see it on the Republican side too, where it's like, the more firebrand you are, the less likely you are to get elected in these tough states. Look at Carrie Lake. Like, she can't get elected. She lost 2 elections in Arizona. If you were to ask, but she will always win a primary for the most part, because people like her, Republicans like her, but just the vast majority of voters don't. So this is an issue that people like Carrie Lake, people like Crockett, people like, Joe Kent in Washington, who lost twice, Marie-Louise Kemp-Perez. So, just because you're firebrand and can win a primary, doesn't mean you can win a general. That happens so much. And it does aggravate a lot of party leaders on both sides.
We've also seen a few times the Democrats meddled in a lot of House seats a few years ago, where they were elevating MAGA people that they knew in purple seats that they knew that they were more likely to beat. Mm-hmm. I can't remember anything as high profile as this. And I want to kind of get into something that you mentioned before, which is that this, the NRSC in Texas has an actual disaster, a very ugly fight on their hands in their own backyard with this 3-way that's happening for the Republican primary. And I guess this was sort of like a Hail Mary to say, like, all right, what if we didn't actually care? Like, what if Ken Paxton could win and we would still be able to go? And that's the one thing that's great from their perspective with Crockett, is that even if you are skeptical, even you hate Ken Paxton, but you're a Republican voter, you are more likely to hold your nose if the alternative is Senator Jasmine Crockett. And that's kind of the extra, 2x boost to all of this, is that it's not even that Jasmine Crockett might rub some Texas Democratic voters the wrong way is that she is electrifying to Republican turnout that might otherwise be like, I'm not really a fan of Ken Paxton.
Exactly. And you see, too, it's like this. They'll never admit it, but that's 100% kind of was on the back of their mind because it just because they don't want to have to. I mean, they're going to obviously the NRC and SLF and just Republican in general, at least the leadership, is going to fight for Cornyn. They're going to be like, we're going to fight for you. If you look at the polling, Cornyn is just not looking good. Like, it's not looking great for him.
He's a wounded duck, and the question has kind of been from the jump. It's like, all right, I remember hearing rumors that he was looking to retire, and that didn't come to fruition. The National Republicans came to his defense and put a bunch of money on the air to boost Cornyn. Hasn't really helped him in the polls that much. It didn't stave Wesley Hunt from getting in the race. Hunt is now in, so he's splitting that vote. What are you hearing on that side? Like is there any? I mean, is there fingernail chewing about Cornyn, because those polls are grim.
Yeah, they're going to support him no matter what, but people are definitely worried. They are definitely believe that Cornyn is in trouble, and they're going to support him to the end just because that's what NRC everyone does with incumbents. They just support him. But outside of the NRC, just Senate Republicans in general, real story a little earlier back. I want to say it was before even Talarico got in. It was probably in like May of last year. It was right when Kim Paxton got in. So around May, June, July, around that time. I was talking to some just like Senate staff, senators, like these kind of senior people just on the official side of the Senate, not necessarily campaign people. And they're like, yeah, like nobody understands what Cornyn's doing. Like the numbers just don't add up. Like he can't win. And I don't know. I mean, Ken Paxton, I believe, hasn't been on the air since August and is still winning. Is still leading. Yeah. And he's also taken his affair hit. He's getting a divorce. Yeah. His wife, I mean, people have dragged him through the mud. He has been impeached. Was not convicted, but was impeached. Yep. He's had, I don't know how many grand juries against him, a lot. Like this guy, like it's like all his dirty laundry is already out there. So what are you gonna hit? What are you gonna hit him on that people like? If all this other stuff hasn't mattered, like you can't really hit him on anything else that like is gonna make people care. The
other side is, the big one shoe that could change the race that has yet to drop is the Trump endorsement, right? And that's the big question from my point of view is like, Donald Trump will endorse Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton has been too loyal to Donald Trump for too long for him to not get an endorsement. The question is, can you force the vaunted double endorsement that Trump is wont to do? And I don't know if Cornyn can do it. Hunt could do it. I don't know if Cornyn could do it. I don't know if Cornyn has that relationship with Trump, or Trump wants to save John Cornyn in that way. And even then, if it's a double endorsement with Trump or with Cornyn and Paxton, I think Paxton still probably wins.
I truly believe that Trump doesn't get in the race. I think he just doesn't see upside, because if you endorse against Cornyn, you still have to deal with him for a year. You need his vote. Yeah. He get pissed off. You endorse against Paxton, he very well might win, might get pissed off at you. You lose an ally. Not really lose an ally, but he's going to be pissed at you. And I don't see Hunt, and a lot of people don't really see Hunt as a serious player right now. They see him more as just taking votes away from people. Hunt has never liked being in the House, I feel like. And the idea within both House Republicans and Senate Republicans is that this is just a way for Hunt to find a way to leave the House. He doesn't like it. Yeah. He hardly shows up to votes on. He's missed last year until he got into the race, he had missed every single flying day vote, regardless of what day it was on. He just missed it. He just skipped it. Yeah. And so a lot of people do view this as like Hunt, like obviously he wants to win, but they're like, he also is not going to be upset if he loses, because it'll be like, whatever. This is a way of him trying to be like, okay, I'm going to leave the House. If I win, I'm in the Senate. Great. That's what I want. If not, I'll just go home and do whatever I want. And maybe get a Trump appointment. So that's kind of his thing. But he's taking votes away mostly from Cornyn, which he's not really getting into that Paxton. Like if you're supporting Paxton over Cornyn, you're going to keep supporting Paxton over whoever just because he's Ken Paxton. Like, you clearly know you are all in on this.
That is,
thing.
you are all in. Ken Paxton is the most persecuted man in America, and his wife is a Jezebel, and his personal business is his personal business, and they can go on from there. Yeah, you are pot committed on Ken Paxton at this point.
Exactly, and so that's the idea there, and so he's just gonna. I mean, if it's Wesley versus, I do believe that if it's Wesley Hunt versus Ken Paxton, a runoff, Wesley Hunt does have a chance to beat Ken Paxton.
I think so.
I do not think John Cornyn could beat Ken Paxton in a runoff, and that's everyone's. I mean, there's just no. I can't wrap my head around why, other than just not wanting to retire. But I mean, Cornyn. I mean
that's the question. The question is, at some point, over the holidays, let's say, does John Cornyn look in the mirror and say, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm really going to I lost connection with the base. People were booing me at the state Republican convention. I had a great run. I couldn't get speaker, or I couldn't get Senate Majority Leader when in the Battle of the Johns. Like, let's just take it on home. Life well lived, Cornyn.
Yeah.
Have the retirement rumors ever been something that people inside the Republican apparatus have taken seriously, or?
And never seriously, but there's just so many rumors about John Cornyn. I remember there was a rumor that the Hunt team was actually circulating. I don't know if they started it or not, but they're definitely circulating it. That Cornyn was up for NASA administrator, which I reported in that same story I reported in a story I did about Wesley Hunt earlier in the year. Where people are just do not like Wesley Hunt either. And mostly just because they view him as somebody, like, it's just not helpful. The Republicans try to help Cornyn, and he's getting it, and they're like, neither of you are going to win. You're just making it harder for us to beat Ken Paxton. Yeah. But so they were circling this rumor that Cornyn was up for NASA administrator. I talked to the White House, and they were like, this is the dumbest fucking rumor. I don't know if I can cuss on the podcast. I hope I can.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll bleep it.
This is the dumbest rumor I've ever heard. They were so, because like it would keep popping up, and it wasn't just me asking about it, because they would tell me, they'd be like, "You are like the sixth person to ask us about this. He is not going to be NASA administrator. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Not happening."
But it just kept coming up and coming up and coming up, and So there's been a lot of rumors about Cornyn, and his team has shot down every single one of them, but he seems to be in it. I don't know why. Like, I feel like he would rather go out on his own terms. I just truly don't see, and nobody really sees, a path for him to win outside of like a miracle happening and Trump only endorsing him, which even then, like,
it would be, that'd be tough. I mean, A, it's not going to happen. And B, I think even then you only kind of get to, I mean, like, the hope is that there is no, you get to the runoff and then there's a solo endorsement, which is not going to happen. I mean, like, Ken Paxton has, the one thing that Trump loves the most is like nearly blind loyalty. And Ken Paxton, for all of his faults, for all of his biblical justifications for his divorce, the one thing he has been loyal to without a fault is Donald Trump. He has done any and everything that Donald Trump dreams it, and Ken Paxton does it before he could even leave his lips.
So Trump doesn't even have to say jump. Ken just like, how high?
No, he's
goes.
Jumping right now, just in case Trump might say it at some point.
And it's worked out for him. Like, who else could save off these impeachments, indictments, just the whole federal bureau investigation just coming, DOJ just raining down on you, and he's like, I'm running for a higher office now. And having him pretty dead to rights.
Like, his own staff turned against him.
His own staff led the impeachment. Yeah. Even Matt Gaetz was under less scrutiny than this sometimes, and he left.
He got the hell out of Dodge. No, not Ken Paxton. So, I mean, I guess so. So you're saying Cornyn's a bit of a mystery, but it would be very, very hard for anybody who's doing this professionally to think that he would drop out. And I can only imagine that his team probably hates Wesley Hunt with the fire of 1,000 suns.
Oh, they're so mad at him. Yeah, they're livid. I mean, I mean, they also hate. I think they hate Ken Paxton more. Because it's Ken Paxton. But they do despise like Wesley Hunt. They're just so mad. They're like, you're making it so much more difficult for us to win. And Wesley Hunt knows that. He thinks that he is the candidate that could beat Ken Paxton, which he is. Like,
yes,
if it was him versus Ken Paxton, he could beat Ken Paxton. But the issue
I think
is
his point of view, aside from, and I've heard similar things that what I've heard from the Republican side of the House is that people just don't look at him as a particularly serious person in general. He's good. He's great on TV. He's great messaging, but he's not one of those lawmakers that really takes, policy particularly seriously. And he does not take his job in the House particularly seriously. But he's obviously ambitious. He likes making TV ads with an aggressively open collar. So like that's where he is now. And his messaging is, I mean, essentially, like if you just only go by what his campaign is putting out every day, it's retire, John. Just retire. Yeah, it's over.
It's also
over.
No one's attacking Ken Paxton anymore. It's just Cornyn versus Hunt. Like they're just going after each other. That's all. Ken Paxton's just here like, dope, y'all do that. I'll chill. Nobody's hitting him. Nobody's going after him. No one's heard from him. What's he done? He's just here.
I know, right?
I was
kind of surprised that he's not doing anything. Like usually you do things to show what you would do if you were in the Senate, but he is just kind of chilling.
Yeah, he has. I could be wrong at this point. Maybe he has spent the new year, but there's a point in December when he had not spent money like on
a dime
ads since August. And he was still winning. I mean, at this point, like he could literally do nothing and just make the runoff. And then just like he'll have a war chest for the runoff because he can fundraise. People like him. And
he's certainly got people. Yeah. I mean, he's got the MAGA faithful. I mean, the question is just like, I don't know. I mean, if Allred's out of the race, I've not been particularly impressed with the opening salvos of Talarico. I mean, because like when you are looking to win as a Democrat in Texas, you do kind of have to be exceptional. Like you can't run a so-so race. You have to run like an electrifying race. Like Beto as an icon was kind of exactly where you needed to be. His fundraising was phenomenal, and it was in a down year for Republicans, and he came within the 5 points of Ted Cruz. Made Ted Cruz sweat. His execution was not great, in my opinion, and that was the problem. It's like you have to have everything. Your execution needs to be flawless. You need to be this like exceptional idea that electrifies the right people and leaves the right people on the other side kind of dormant. You have to be not too hot, not too cold. And so far, I don't know. I don't see that on either candidate on the left. But then again, the ultimate equalizer is Paxton, who's like, like if you're a Democrat, you're like, wow, I get to run all these ads against Ken Paxton. I get to run his own wife, his singing wife, talking about, how she's getting divorced from him on biblical grounds and all the rumors that are swirling around about exactly how many and who he cheated with. Like, that's amazing. That's great. They'd love to amplify all that.
Yeah. And I also believe, and this is just, my whole family's in Texas. I believe, too, there is a contingent that will vote against Ken Paxton. I mean, the contingent that will vote against Cornyn. Just because, like, there's Trump voters that have been turned off to Trump will probably vote Democrat. But Texas is still red. Like, it's still
a red state.
A red state. And so I also believe Ken Paxton's mind is, like, he's won statewide. Like, it doesn't – I don't think he cares truly who the Democrat is. Obviously, I think they want Crockett because they think they – believe she'd be easier, but I think they believe too, like Talarico, like come November, like Republicans in Texas are probably going to come home for the most part and just vote for Ken Paxton. It might be close, but like if Beto could have beat Ted Cruz, and I believe Beto is just like you said, like it was he just got people going. I think more than what Talarico did.
It was a moment in time. Yeah.
I think that like if Beto couldn't get it done with Ted Cruz, who was just also just not that popular among the general base, among the general election voters. How can Talarico do it? It's not like Trump is any less popular now than he was in 2018. Like, it's pretty equal.
I mean, the question, Talarico would have to kind of light people on fire. And I don't think that he is doing that right now. Yeah. And I don't know if he's really capable of it. I think he is a nice enough guy, but you gotta be the Beatles, man. Like you have to be this like once in a generation, get on the bus movement for Democrats in Texas.
One thing I think he can do that I don't think Beto was able to do is he has tapped into this kind of religious movement where there are like strong Christians that are like, oh, I do like this guy, but that's not a big base of like, I think that's hard.
This is just my instinct, and I haven't been around Texas politics particularly long, but the religious element of it, and he is a man of the cloth, but his denomination is not exactly in harmony with the majority of Texans. No. And like, it's tricky. That's one of those things that I think reads really, really well in California. It reads really, really well in New York. Like he'll raise a ton of money if he is the nominee. If he beats Crockett, he'll be, obviously that would be a huge overperformance by him. But I do think that there's this idea of him being this third way candidate because he, has a religious background. But he ain't Raphael Warnock. He ain't this is not him connecting on a religious level with the roots of that state. Like he is not and when you get into that realm, and this probably better than I do, like you can get too close to the religious issue and burn yourself. Like it is not just a like, oh, in the coast, people think, oh, he's religious. The religious people will love him. Not here. I mean, there are people like their stuff. They like their religion like their brisket. Very specific.
Yeah. It is true that while it does play well, I mean, a lot of religious people are just always going to vote Republican now. Like Trump has has taken over this evangelical base where it's like, it doesn't matter really. They're just going to vote a lot against Democrats. I do think he has tapped into some of this base. I do think there are some people, Republicans, who maybe are fed up with Trump and his immigration enforcement and all the other stuff. I do think I do know that he's tapped into this, but that's just not a huge.
They were Democrats anyway. That's my problem. It's like you're talking to people that are functionally Democrats. They might have at some point been Republicans, but we have a coalition shift in this country where college-educated, suburban, quote-unquote Republicans, people that thought of themselves as Republicans at some point, have drifted into a Democratic cohort. And so, yes, he speaks to them. Do I go to church, but I don't like Trump? James Talarico is made in the lab. Guess what? You would have voted for Jasmine Crockett. You would have voted for Colin Allred. You probably did vote for Colin Allred. You're not peeling off people that you need to. They were people that were moving coalitionally in that direction anyway. I mean, again, the biggest thing is, can you reheat the Paxton scandals in a way that you do turn off Republican voters? And Republican voters are like, I don't know, this Paxton guy, geez, because the details we know are pretty grody.
Yeah. And I don't know that anyone can, honestly. I don't think, if he's already won statewide with most of these. Everyone knew he had an affair. Everyone knew he was under indictment. Everyone knew he was impeached, and he still got reelected as Attorney General. The only difference is now his wife left him. Okay?
Maybe she'll write a song about it, though. She does like writing and singing songs. So maybe that's it. I mean, the good news for Ken Paxton is that if Crockett wins, he doesn't have to run an ad with his face in it.
No, because
he just runs anti-Crockett ads.
To get back to kind of what we were talking about before, they'll never admit it, but this is part of their mindset. It's if Crockett is the nominee, we want her to run because she's the nominee. The primary doesn't matter anymore. They're just doing it to save Cornyn now. Originally, it was doing it to save the state. Now it's we're just doing it to save Cornyn. If he loses, a Republican's still going to win if it's against Crockett. And that's their mindset. They'll never admit it.
Because Crockett's put so much on tape. She's so, look, that's where her charisma kind of works against her, is that the stuff that electrifies the MS Now crowd also electrifies the Republicans. They love it. They are going to come out in droves to prevent her from becoming a senator.
Yeah, I mean, Governor Hot Wheels is going to be like all over. Like her saying that is going to be all plastered. Like that's not going to play well in a private. People are going to find that just so offensive. Like her saying Governor Hot Wheels is going to be plastered in ads, being like, oh, she doesn't respect for all, like Governor Abbott is popular in Texas. It's like she doesn't respect our governor. Like, look at this. Like that is just the ads of what she says just write her themselves. Like
that's before she says other things.
Yeah.
Like that's there's no guarantee that we're not going to see more things that happen.
This is just what she said last year. Like we still this is like an objectively offensive thing to say. It doesn't matter how she spins it. Like we all know we all know what she was saying. Like,
I mean, and she's, she called out people, Jeffrey Epstein donating to politicians and then had to walk back that it wasn't Jeffrey Epstein. It was another Jeffrey Epstein.
It's just stuff like that. And like, it's great for television. It's great for social media. It's great for bringing in dollars. I mean, she basically has tapped into what Marjorie Taylor Greene tapped into when she first got here. Was I could say the craziest thing, and people will donate to me, and then I don't need to listen to anybody else. I could do what I want.
I don't need leadership. I don't need the party. I don't need any. I'm my own independent operating person.
But the only difference is Marjorie was confronted when she wanted to run statewide in Georgia. She was confronted and was like, "You cannot win," and she didn't like it, but she listened and she did not run statewide. Jasmine Crockett was definitely confronted to be like, you can't win. It was like, I'm going to try anyways.
Yeah. Well, very, very interesting. I'll tell you what, Reese, we got to bring you back on because this is probably my favorite primary on both sides. And we will keep in touch with you as you write for Notice. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you find us on notice.com. It is Notice, stands for News of the U.S. You can listen to our podcast on Notice, which releases every Monday, where I interview different lawmakers. And you can find me on Twitter or X at Reese J. Gorman.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it.
This is your update, brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you need to go if you want to support this show. 2 bonus episodes each and every week, right there in your RSS feed. We love it, we love it, we love it, and we love you. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Donald Trump on Truth Social writing the following: Biden ignored the housing market and instead was immersed in high crime, open borders, and runaway inflation, the Afghanistan disaster, and a military that he left in chaos and confusion. Everything was broken, but I, the president of the United States, have already fixed it. Now because I am giving special attention to the housing market. Because I chose not to sell Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in my first term, a truly great decision, and against the advice of the quote-unquote experts, it is now worth many more times an absolute fortune and has $200 billion in cash. Because of this, I am instructing my representatives to buy $200 billion in mortgage bonds that will drive mortgage rates down, monthly payments down, and make the cost of owning a home more affordable. It is one of my many steps in restoring affordability, something that the Biden administration absolutely destroyed. We are bringing back the American dream that was destroyed in the last administration. Make America great again. The great affordability rollout continues. Donald Trump looking to drop mortgage rates any way that he can. This comes after rumors that the Fed would not cut rates in their next meeting. We'll see whether or not that happens. But Donald Trump wants to be seen as somebody doing something on affordability. This pairs with something we talked about in our bonus episode yesterday, the banning of large organizations from buying single-family homes. That one a little bit more controversial. I don't know enough about the mortgage bond market to know if this is controversial, but there we go. Speaking of Donald Trump, he sat down for 2 hours with 4 reporters from the New York Times. Here were some of the key points. Trump said his only real limit as commander-in-chief is his own morality, downplaying international law as a binding constraint. I didn't say anything about the guy, but he is at least honest. He does not care about international law, although, then again, not many people do. He argued that power and national strength, not treaties or norms, should decide global outcomes. He would judge when international law applies. Again, Trump said he embraces coercive diplomacy, using unpredictability and rapid military action to pressure other nations. He cited recent actions and ambitions, including the strikes on Iran, regime change in Venezuela, and a push to own Greenland as part of that. He suggested U.S. interests could outweigh alliance commitments, implying a trade-off with NATO. Trump dismissed concerns that his actions set precedents for Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin, insisting that they would not act similarly while he is president. He appeared unconcerned about the imminent expiration of nuclear arms control, saying that a better deal could follow. And domestically, he acknowledged some checks, but floated workarounds like reframing tariffs, and reiterated a willingness to invoke the Insurrection Act if he deems it necessary. A lot of the same from Trump, but if you listen to the audio from the New York Times, you get a sense of kind of who he is when he's not totally up to 11. Interestingly, he took a call from Bret Baier while he was on doing the interview, and I believe he also talked to the president of Colombia, although that was off the record to the New York Times reporters, but they did hear it. They were allowed. I have heard this a few times. Trump loves talking to people on speakerphone while other people are in the room. Loves it. One of his favorite things to do. Finally, the Supreme Court may rule today, as you listen to this, on Friday, on the legality of President Donald Trump's tariffs, a decision with major implications to trade policy, federal revenues, and market stability. The case centers on whether the administration has properly used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs, and whether importers would need to be reimbursed if the court rules against the government. The justices could issue a narrow or mixed rulings, preserving some tariffs while limiting future use of emergency powers. Even a loss may not end tariffs, as the administration has other legal tools available. Markets are watching closely. This is a big deal, a very big deal. We will see what's going to happen. I have heard a lot of Republican voices that have said this is going to go against the administration. The question is, A, do they have to pay money back? And B, what can they do going forward? I haven't heard a lot of people saying that everything is going to remain hunky-dory. And part of the reason is this. The Supreme Court does not want to open the window for other executive actions to be justified by loosely defined things that have happened in the past. They want to clamp down on it. That has been a history of this Supreme Court, even more so now that it has a conservative bent. We will all find out together. Now, won't we? Good news for Trump, though. His trade deficit has indeed shrunk, as he said that it would, and it appears as if the third quarter data that was delayed after the shutdown was very good. The economy grew at a robust rate in the third quarter. And that is it for our update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Let's go ahead and get to our second interview. I think you guys are really going to love this one. It is my honor to welcome to the program a excellent writer and a new friend, Stella Tsantekidou. You write a great Substack called The Human Carbohydrate. You are a former Politico out there in the UK, and now you write about culture and politics and so much more. And we want to talk about something that you wrote recently about how anybody who's out there saying, you want to know what? I'm taking a digital detox in 2026. I'm going to free myself from the mental prison of the fighting pits online. If you care about your politics and you have a left-wing bent, that is for losers. Explain yourself, Stella.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, my essay is called Digital Detoxes Are for Losers. And I'm giving myself a challenge for 2026 to post one reel every single day. So one short form video on Instagram and TikTok every single day. And I hate making reels. I'm not a content creator. I mean, I guess I am a content creator in a sense, but as you said, I used to work in Parliament. I was a speechwriter in the British Parliament in the UK, in London, even though I'm from Greece, which people can tell from my accent and from my last name. And then I worked for very, very big charities in policy roles. So I took myself seriously for a very long time. I still take myself seriously. I try to anyway. But at the same time, I realize that political persuasion, a lot of it is about culture. And that's because this is where my attention goes to as well. And so, and especially in the UK, but in the US as well, there is this thing where, because the left, I think it has become more mainstream and a lot of people take themselves very seriously, they look down on a lot of social media. And then you had the other thing that happened over the last decade, and especially since Elon Musk bought Twitter, where you had all of these mainstream lefties and progressives and liberals, whatever name you would like to use for the kind of person who does not vote for Donald Trump or for a right-wing party. And a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people for one, left Twitter completely.
Yeah.
But more importantly, that was not just normal users. It was also a lot of academics, a lot of political influencers, a lot of people who knew what they were talking about. So one kind of person that I talk about in my essay is the hyper-educated lefty who has Noam Chomsky level of knowledge. So, a left-wing person who is able to do the kind of Twitter thread takedown when a right-winger says something that they're very pleased with themselves. And obviously that happens on both sides of the argument, right? That happens both with left-wingers and with right-wingers. You have someone saying something that sounds too good to be true for that person's particular politics. And then somebody comes in and says, no, wait a minute, the event that you are describing, at the time I was a PhD in Oxford or whatever when this was happening, so I have observed it very well, and this is not how it went down. And this is really, really important if you are a young person who is watching politics happen online for the first time. But once all of the progressives left Twitter, and Elon Musk, obviously, he bought Twitter, he changed the algorithm. We know for a fact that he changed the algorithm. And we know for a fact that the new algorithm prefers right-wing content. Of course, Elon Musk, what he says is that, look, it is polarizing content and it's the kind of content that you interact with. So you are saying that it is right-wing, but I say that it is just because you are interacting with it. So all you have to blame is
And also narratively, the argument was that there was an algorithm that previously favored left-wing content. And so now there is some kind of rebalancing of the scales.
Exactly. But what this has led, and I'm obviously not the first person to say that, loads of people have been saying this for a very long time, and books have been written about this, like Kill All Normies. Have you heard of the book Kill All Normies? It came out in 2017.
No.
And it describes exactly this thing that I am saying. It describes how over the early 2010s, the left became more and more censorious, and their online presence became about policing speech and about small linguistic differences and becoming offended and who has the highest victimhood. And what this meant was that people who wanted who were craving more genuine expression, they went into darker and darker right-wing spaces. And that is how the right won the online culture wars eventually. It took them some time, but eventually they won it, and they are a lot more dominant now.
Yeah, it's at least in America, and I would assume that there's probably an analog in the UK. The right has a history of finding the neglected media and making it their own and kind of colonizing it in a way that is hard to get around. And AM radio is probably the biggest thing in America. That AM radio was the lesser than. It didn't have the same frequency. It sounded like crap. FM radio, that's the big cool thing. But AM radio became where you heard right-wing talk. That was Rush Limbaugh. That was like all these very iconic brands. And the internet, which was this trivial thing. You had the New York Times saying it was going to be as important as the fax machine. You know what? At the dawn of it, eventually, as soon as the techies kind of lost their control, which is the way that these things sort of go, is at first it's the domain of the techies, and then it becomes the domain of the culture. The right found their home to it. Now, the left did too, and the progressive left did as well. And I think what you're pointing out now is that in this post-Xification of Twitter, the left took their ball and went home, and now they are in almost entirely closed echo chambers that are policed very thoroughly to make sure that only the echoes stay inside. And your argument is, no, you got to go back out to where the fight is. You have to make the arguments where people are paying attention, no matter how much all of the writers and editors are on Blue Sky. They're still taking their stories from Twitter because they don't trust Blue Sky is actually what people are talking about.
Exactly. So Blue Sky is a great example, right? Because Blue Sky is so unhealthy for any progressive to go on Blue Sky, because you go on Blue Sky and you are under the illusion that people still care about who you believe needs to be cancelled.
Yeah.
It is the most toxic and unattractive online ecosystem. Literally, I think most people who are very active on Blue Sky are very often people who, in my personal, non-scientific, non-medical opinion, have there's evidence of personality disorder there. Like there are symptoms of active personality disorders. And these people are just untreated and they are taking it out on Blue Sky. But with X, what happened is, so I'm a political commentator like yourself, and I also go on TV and on radio very regularly in the UK. And I either comment on specific things doing specific debates, but I also do paper reviews where you wake up in the morning and you are like going over the papers and you're saying, so I see this cover says blah, blah, blah. So over the last... That's
great. That is, can I pause you just real quick? Yeah. That's a genre of television that just does not exist in America, but is very common in the UK. This is just for folks in the UK. You're like, wait a minute, hold on. This is not everywhere. But in America, they're going to be shocked by this. It's literally just a block of like 2 hours where you just look at front pages of newspapers and talk about it. I would crush. This would be like, I come from newspapers. All I do is think about what headlines are. I'd be critiquing headlines and where the comma's misplaced. I have all sorts of issues. The fact that does not exist in America has hampered my career by like 20 years. So I'm very jealous of you that you get these opportunities. Anyway, go ahead.
It's quite old-fashioned, right? And they do it. I grew up watching people do it in where I grew up in Greece as well, and where I am right now, by the way. But it's very old-fashioned. But what it does, the great thing that it does, is it gives you a snapshot of one, because the headlines are from, you do covers not just of the British papers, in the UK at least, that's what we do.
Yeah.
It's not just the British paper, we also do the American one. So we will do the New York Times, Washington Post, we will do a few American ones as well. And it is very useful in seeing the waves of the news and what gets repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
And if you are also on Twitter, on X, you are also able to see, okay, so this was trending for a week, and then suddenly it is on the paper reviews. And what does it mean when something makes it on the cover of a newspaper in the UK, and then commentators have to talk about it on the morning rounds? What does that mean? The government every day, and the opposition, in every single day in the morning, they have to send someone from the front bench, from their cabinet, who is going to do the morning rounds. And during the morning rounds, they have to respond to questions about the stories that were on the front pages. So whatever makes it on the front pages is something where the government is forced to have a position on it. So what happened when Elon Musk bought X? He got obsessed with the grooming gang scandal, which is a scandal that started over a decade ago. And don't get me wrong, it is a terrible scandal. I don't know to what extent your audience will know about the grooming
Google it. Yeah,
Google it, guys.
It is gross. Yes, it is very gross.
And a lot of culture war issues that came up through it. But after that, this dominated the news, and there was a domino of events that took place where we could speak about nothing else apart from that. The government in the end was forced to start a national inquiry, which you would say, isn't it great? It's a good thing that a national inquiry is happening. And I would say, well, yes, it is, but it is billions of pounds being spent on this. And then we're going to have to spend even billions more pounds on all sorts of other things, which it is important. It has to be important. But why is it that Elon Musk chose what was the important thing?
And here's the reason why. And I would back up your point. In a world without gatekeepers, where all of the gatekeepers, and you've made a great point with the editors that are assigning those front pages, that are assigning the stories, and then there is somebody who is deciding exactly what goes where, what headline, what size headline, the way that it's presented to the world. They're not sure what is important. The only version of social proof is social media. And so if the gatekeepers are terrified of their own judgment to say, we think that this is going forward because they've been burnt on the stove so many times. These are the same editors that thought that Brexit wasn't going to happen, and then it happened. They were the same editors that thought Donald Trump wasn't going to get elected, and then got elected. So now they're gun shy. They have no idea what to look for. The one thing they know they're not going to get yelled at is what's trending on Facebook, what's trending on Twitter. Let's assign people to do that. That means that the landscape is flattened, and the way that you used to be able to make a story were to get into very specific rooms and talk to very specific people, or at least convince them that something was important. Short of that, it wasn't going to make it to the front page. Now, a YouTube clip, the whim of somebody that wants to talk about something. That's why the grooming gang scandal went from something that was a big deal, is a big deal, not to say that it is diminished in what its importance, but why did it rise to the level of you got to talk about it right now? Because of X. Why is the Epstein stuff now a thing? That's been around. It's been in the ecosystem forever. Because of social media, because there's social media people that are bothering politicians, that are bothering news people, and they know, take bias out of it, take agenda out of it. If somebody is yelling at you about something and somebody else is not yelling at you about something else, what are you going to pay attention to? The thing that people are yelling at you about, whether or not it's an old story, whether or not it's a biased story, whether or not it's any kind of story. That's just the human instinct. And from the mind of a gatekeeper, especially a diminished one, you have to focus on it. There's only a certain amount that you can put a line there. Now, I wish we had outlets that had a little bit more foresight, that maybe would look to take these stories and advance them. I don't know. Maybe apply your own budget to not just regurgitate what's being said online. But alas, we don't live in that world yet, Stella.
Yeah, and there was, I don't know if you've heard of Andrew Gold. He's a very big YouTuber here in the UK, but his stuff is international, I guess. And he's a lot of people use him as the classic example of someone who was a serious journalist. He became a YouTuber. Yeah. He did a lot of investigative content, but eventually his content became more and more radicalized because it was just so much more lucrative on YouTube than the garden variety investigative content. And now he has a lot of very right-wing guests. He had Tony Robinson on, who is this far-right activist in the UK. And he was saying how, well, it's easy for anybody to criticize from the outside, but to do that kind of content, every time that he will post an interview with a left-winger or a centrist or somebody who is not controversial in this sense, he doesn't just make enough money to cover the costs. He literally loses money on that episode because of how expensive it is to create that kind of thing as a creator on your own. Now that all of the so many mainstream media they no longer are what they used to be. So for him, it's not even, he was explaining how it's not even, you're going to be making a decent income. It's like you either make zero income or you go all in. And this is how the algorithm works. But I also think that I'm looking at a lot of people, especially progressives, who they're really good writers. they are really good communicators, right? And I will find their stuff in journals that have a very small circulation at times. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing what you wrote here. And then I'm like, you selfish bastard. I understand how nice it must be for you to put this in your resume or whatever. But why do you think, why can't you not, expanding your influence should be a good thing for the cause? Not just for your personal career, but for your cause.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that if you are here to advance a point of view, and if you feel that the point of view that is being advanced is unjust or incorrect, then you got to join the fight. You got to be where the fight is. And it's not great. I mean, I think there's an argument to say that maybe the message board isn't the place that should be driving culture. And again, that to me comes back to my mandate that I do believe in big journalistic institutions. I just believe that they need to understand that what's happening online, yes, should be a signal to you, but you need to do work going forward. There's this whole thing, I don't know, I've been meaning to sit down and write it, but just the state of our modern world of journalism. And it came to me because the Charlie Kirk shooting happened. And then about a month later, there's like all this questions of who the shooter was and what his allegiances were, what the motivations were. So then all of a sudden this video comes out and it's by a guy named Turkey Tom. And Turkey Tom on YouTube, all he does is YouTube drama. One guy who does YouTube hates another guy who hates YouTube. So he'll aggregate all the time where they talk crap about each other and give the lore as to why they hate each other. But in this instance, Turkey Tom got what many journalists get, a lead, an email from a friend of the shooter. And the friend of the shooter had all sorts of stuff. And he talked about what it was like and how he and his boyfriend kind of became radicalized. And he had pictures and videos, all the things that any journalist in this world would love to get a lead on. Now, what Turkey Tom did was made a video about an hour and a half of him going through and doing some light fact checking in the way that a YouTube drama guy would. About 3 months after that, the Washington Post wrote a story that essentially corroborated everything. But it was 5 months after Charlie Kirk got shot and 3 months after Turkey Tom had it. And so now we're in this world where the first line of journalism is Turkey Tom. It's the Turkey Tomification of things. Now, what I would love is not to say that the Washington Post should have went faster, although I think they probably could have, especially with the kind of resources that they have. But it's just take that as a signal and try to advance it. Try to go forward. And you, I think from your perspective, you're like, I just want to shape the signal. I just want to be out there. And if something's happening, I want to be able to say, yeah, this is important. And here's why it's important. And I wish more people would go where people are watching so they could explain that. I don't think this is necessarily an unhealthy ecosystem. I do think that we are reacting to it unhealthily. And I would back up your point that if you want to play the game, you got to be on the board. Yeah.
And I also don't think that, just because Turkey Tom got the thing, I don't think that means that then we didn't need the Washington Post to corroborate the details.
I think you wanted it.
Yeah, I think that people wanted it and needed it. And obviously Washington Post probably would still have a wider reach, right? Mm-hmm. But I guess for me, I'm more concerned about all the other people surrounding Washington Post or whatever else media who would not have engaged with Turkey Tom, which is something that progressives, the liberals, they love doing that. They love looking down on the new whatever creators. They love looking down on the right-wing commentators who they're not familiar with, because it is easy and it gives you credit with other liberals to say, I would never talk to that person. I would never go on that person's YouTube show or podcast. That person platforms fascists. And I'm not a fascist. I am our grandparents defeated fascism and you are going on fascist podcasts. It's like, people are listening to you and they're thinking you are insane. You're not convincing anyone. So, and they will say, why should I be nice to people like that? Why should I have civilized conversations with people like that? And I'm like, listen to yourself. Why should your potential voters, why should you talk to people who your potential voters watch and like?
Well, and also I think you got to the core of it in your headline, which is like, is all of that just a way to say that you're scared? That you're scared it's not going to go well, that you're scared that you're going to get yelled at by people that you respect, by your own tribe. Exactly. If you dare to step outside the orthodoxy, you're going to get crushed. Because by the way, that's happened before. That happens all the time. So I can understand it, but I don't think that I do think that it hamstrings the cause. You know, it reminds me, there's this thing happening. Has the Somali stuff made its way over to the UK?
Oh my God, I am obsessed with that scandal. I am obsessed. When I first read that scandal in the New York Times, and thank God it was the New York Times because I wouldn't have believed it otherwise. The numbers, like if I compare these numbers to like the budget in the UK, and then I thought I have to look through American budgets to understand whether this is as massive as it looks to me. And it absolutely wasn't. I just couldn't believe it, the amount of money.
So there was a video by a kid named Nick Shirley, who's a right-wing influencer, and who goes to all these daycares, right? Today, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, said he's not running for re-election. Like, so he is dropping out. He is ending his political career, essentially, in part because this became a national news story. And yet on the left, the initial argument is this kid's video sucks. And it's like, whether or not the kid's video has problems, you can poke holes in it. That's fine. It just ended the career of the guy that was the vice presidential nominee a year and change ago. Like, that's ridiculous. It was obviously important enough to him. He took it seriously enough that he ended his political career.
And also, so the video, I saw some big liberal influencers taking down the video, right? And saying how actually like what the guy was doing was unacceptable because he was like intimidating people and like some of it was not true what he was saying. And I'm like, fine, that's fine. Some of the stuff in that specific video was trying to was propaganda, whatever it was, and wasn't. He was making statements that were not true. The scandal, however, as a whole, it is real. A fact.
Yes.
And if you, as a left-winger, if I, as a normal person, read about those numbers, look at those numbers in the scandal, which is absolutely real, these people have been prosecuted and it has been...
Found guilty, tried to bribe a juror. They tried to bribe a juror.
Yeah, like absolutely undemocratic behavior, which I do not understand how any left-winger would want to defend any of that. So if the first thing a normal person is seeing is a left-winger nitpicking and saying, oh, you are being, you're trying to be blah, 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 you're being a racist. And it's like, no, that's not the first thing a person should be saying. Your first reaction when a scandal like that happens is to say, right, all of these people in jail forever, disgusting. This is welfare terrorism. This is absolutely disgusting. We do not defend any of you, like absolutely not. But that is not what the average person is seeing. The average person is just seeing you trying to, triangulate and
Well, and I guess that's, to go back to your central thesis, the energy should be on making your points. Sometimes you lose a point. Sometimes the point isn't in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't fit in with the larger narrative. And with those, concede them. Just say, you're not going to win every fight. Yes, this scandal happened. Yes, the numbers here are crazy. You should follow the money. Anybody who's tied to it should go down. And then talk about a thing that is good for you. And then talk about a thing that does bolster your point, that moves your ball forward a little bit. There is like this element, and I do think it's rooted in message board culture and Trump has certainly mastered it, but the idea of never giving up on anything is only half the battle. What Trump also does when he denies everything is then talks about a thing that he wants to talk about to shape the message to something that he wants to. And people very, very rarely remember the second part. They remember the first part of having no shame. They don't remember the part of like, yeah, but then you got to give people something else to talk about.
But also, if you don't really believe what you're saying, people will be able to tell, and then you will have to eventually. You will have to explain yourself. And the same thing happened with the grooming gang scandal, as is happening with the Minnesota scandal as well, which is that progressives eventually they will have. If you don't give up the people who you are falsely believing you are trying to protect, because here the left-wing position is, I want to protect Somalians from being discriminated against because of the crimes of a few Somalian people. Fine. Yes. But at the same time, you also want to protect those Somalians from the corrupt people in their communities, because as a left-winger, you believe that there shouldn't be some people making millions and not giving this money to feed starving children. You also believe that. So they are your enemy. It's fine. Go ahead and be really vocal about it and take people to believe in you and to see that you are just as passionate and just as willing to attack these people as you are with everyone else.
Yeah, because that's always the left wing's charge is that government can work. And so if this is a sign that government can't work, then you need to police it. You need to, in the same way that the right-winger argument is that there should be less government, when somebody exploits a hole in that and does something reprehensible, you got to draw a line in the sand and say, well, that guy should go to jail because there should be a law for this, that, and the other. But you got to be in there. You got to be making that argument. How long have you been writing your Substack?
2.5 years maybe. And honestly, when I started, I was working in a charity, and I did not consider at all that I would ever become a freelancer. I did not consider myself, I would say I'm a writer as one of my main identities right now. I did not think that when I first started my Substack. But it has all been part of, what I'm trying to do now, which is try to create. I'm not even doing it because I want to get more followers necessarily, specifically from the reels and the short form videos that I will be creating. Yeah. It's also just for myself as a political commentator. I want to be in touch. And all of these things, Substack, going on, right-wing media and all that, it has helped my political development so much in just making me a more thoughtful political operative.
You've also entered into some of the cultural questions. I think the last thing I saw that you posted on Substack was why you were single or unmarried. How has that been? I can only imagine there's only so much that I can mental model as a dude who posts things on the internet. Now, I don't really get into those cultural elements, but I can only imagine that they are a minefield in terms of the emotions that come out of them from any and everybody. What is that experience been like, going from a world that is kind of staid and has rules to it to the third rail of men and women and dating life and stuff like that?
So my most viral essay on Substack is called "The Desperation of Female Neediness," and I juxtapose the eternal male horniness with the female emotional neediness, right? And at first it was a bit scary because, as I said, I'm a serious person. My title was head of policy for a national charity. Yeah. Where, and in the UK, people are even more snobbish about things like that than they are in the US. Very, very, very misjudged, in my opinion, because this is not where the wind is going. And people just have to get on board with the fact that people do not like somebody who pretends
UK?
Like they have
snobbish?
Oh yeah.
No, this is shocking news.
Exactly. So I write very personal essays, and I make a lot of jokes. I'm often sarcastic. I often make fun of myself. People often cannot tell whether I'm being serious or not, especially in some of my personal essays when I'm being a bit pathetic. Like, that's a big part of the way that I make fun of myself is to portray myself as quite pathetic, which clashes with my with my TV personality, let's say, which is a lot more, an argumentative, take no prisoners, left-wing woman, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people got confused at first, but I also think that it has allowed me to have a much more organic audience and to have a genuine relationship with them. And also to have people who are not just people from my own media bubble and political bubble. I don't just get followed by left-wingers. I have a lot of right-wingers. I have people from all age groups. And I think part of what they like is that. And so for me, the one feeds into the other. The personal stuff feeds into the political stuff. Do you know Joshua Citarella? Have you heard of Joshua Citarella?
No.
He's also a podcaster in the US, and he's a lefty, and he has this pipeline theory about how you influence politics and how the right has been more influential in politics, which says that, the Joe Rogan theory, actually, that you will put all sorts of stuff out there and people will be following you for other things. They could be following you because you talk about fitness, because you talk about culture, because you comment on new movies and blockbusters, whatever. But eventually that could mean that they also get to absorb your own views about how the world works, about not just politics, about life. And I really take that on board, and that's why I try to just not think about it when I post something very personal on there. And I do feel, I'm not a psychopath. Of course I feel a bit scared, but I try to just I try to pretend like I'm just sending this in my close friends WhatsApp group. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's the whole world and everybody else that would like to pay attention to it. I would encourage folks to go and read Stella's piece on Brigitte Bardot, which is something that, in America, we don't have the same relationship with her beyond just the iconography. But obviously she had very right-wing opinions in France. And when she died last week, there was a lot of conversation about, all right, well, do you take the iconographic sex goddess that, very much shaped popular culture? Do you take who she was privately and personally? And I think you wrote the best piece that I had read that wasn't trying to either, blow up one of those two poles, but rather say, no, she was both. She was extraordinarily complicated and neither should be diminished.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Well, go read that. Stella, thank you so much for coming on. I already bravely pronounced your last name once, and I dare not do it again, but you're welcome on the show anytime. Thank you. Where can people find you?
On the Human Carbohydrate on Substack, and they can also follow me on my Instagram. It's called @Tsanteka, Tsanteka, where I will be posting one reel a day for the next year. Yeah.
One reel a day. Get it in your life. Thank you very much, Stella.
Thanks, Justin. Bye-bye.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. You can send me an email, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find, follow, and share video clips of our show. TikTok, Justin R. Young. Instagram, Justin R. Young. X, Justin R. Young, and our YouTube is Politics. We love our YouTube. Please like, subscribe, and comment right down below. You get the full show in beautiful video, high definition video, suitable for the big screen. If you head on over there, Politics is what you got to search for. You can support us with a one-time donation. PayPal.me/PayJury, PayJury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3 Cash. You can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Of course, you can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week, either $3 a week, or that's $12. I got to change the verbiage here. We're out of the weekly talk. It's a month, right? It's $12 a month. Or $99 for the entire year. It's 150 episodes of PX3 for under $100. But the only way you get your name read at the end of each and every show is by getting onto our foundational tier. And the names are as follows. Sonny Black, L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Nick, Sarah, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes, Neil, Casey. Oh, yeah, it's Adam, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, the Borge Bee, Matthew, Michael, DP4 Bongo, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Paul, Gloria Young, my mother, a dog named Checkers, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Duck. You want your name read on the show. One place to do it, takepoliticsseriously.com. We will be back next week working on great guests. Obviously, there's a lot going on. I hope everybody has a good night. Hope everybody has a good weekend. Stay warm. 2026 is here, and it will not stop. I don't know why I was so menacing there. Till next time, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. This is the only show that dares discuss all three.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.